My name is Margaret Chen, and I'm 72 years old. I've lived in the same house in Portland, Oregon for 43 years. The kitchen where this story takes place has seen countless family dinners, birthday cakes, and quiet cups of tea. My husband Robert and I raised our son Daniel here. Robert passed away 8 years ago, leaving me with this house full of memories and a heart that still aches for him some days. But nothing prepared me for what happened on that Tuesday evening in October. I was making my grandmother's beef stew, the same recipe I'd made 1,000 times before. The same recipe I made for Robert when he came home tired from the hospital where he worked. The same recipe I made for Daniel when he was a boy with scraped knees and big dreams. The kitchen smelled of thyme and bay leaves. Steam rose from the pot as I stirred slowly, watching the vegetables soften into tenderness. The wooden spoon moved in circles, the way my grandmother had taught me. Slow, steady, patient. My son Daniel sat in the living room. He's 45 now, with greying temples and kind eyes like his father had. He was watching the evening news, the volume low, the way he always did after work. He's an accountant, quiet, gentle, sometimes too gentle, I'd come to realize. Then I heard the front door open. Rebecca, my daughter-in-law, walked in. She's 38, with sharp features and perfectly styled auburn hair that she has colored every 3 weeks. She works in marketing at a downtown firm. Always put together, always confident. Designer clothes, expensive tastes. We'd never been close, not really. But I tried for Daniel's sake. For 7 years, I tried. I heard her heels clicking across the hardwood floor toward the kitchen. That sound always put me on edge. Sharp, aggressive, like little hammers. Against the floor Robert had refinished with his own hands. I kept stirring. Still cooking, Margaret? Her voice had an edge I'd learned to recognize over the years. That tone that made everything sound like criticism. Just finishing the stew, dear, I said quietly. Not looking up, she walked closer. I could smell her expensive perfume. Something French. Something that cost more than my weekly groceries. She stood beside me, looking into the pot with an expression I couldn't quite read. Who cooks like that? She said suddenly, her voice rising sharp and cruel. Useless woman. Before I could react, before I could even process her words, she grabbed the ladle from my hand and slammed it against my head. The pain was sharp, immediate. White light flashed behind my eyes. I stumbled backward, gripping the counter for support. My grandmother's china rattled on the shelf above. Rebecca, I gasped, my voice barely a whisper, but she was already walking away, laughing. Actually laughing. A cold, brittle sound that echoed through my kitchen. Maybe you'll learn to stay in your place, old woman, she called over her shoulder. I stood there, my head throbbing, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. My hand went to where she'd hit me. No blood, thank God, but I could feel the swelling starting already, and then I heard it. The television volume went up, louder now, much louder. Daniel had heard everything. I knew he had. Our house isn't that big, but he was pretending he hadn't, turning up the volume to drown out what had just happened to his own mother. That hurt more than the ladle. So much more. I touched my head again, feeling the rising lump. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I was 72 years old, and my daughter-in-law had just assaulted me in my own kitchen while my son pretended not to notice. 5 minutes passed, maybe more. I stood at the stove, unable to move, unable to think clearly. The stew kept bubbling. Life kept going on, as if nothing had changed. But something had changed inside me. Something had broken and reformed into something harder. Then came the crash. It was loud, violent. The whole kitchen seemed to shake. Pots rattled, dishes clinked. Daniel came running. His face was white, eyes wide. What happened? Are you okay? I didn't answer right away. I just pointed with a trembling hand. The heavy cast iron pot, my grandmother's pot, the one she'd brought from China 70 years ago, had somehow fallen from the shelf. The stew was everywhere, all over the floor, all over the counter. Dark brown liquid spreading like a flood. Chunks of beef and carrots are scattered across the white tiles. And there, in the middle of the mess, lay Rebecca's designer handbag. The cream-colored leather one she'd bragged about for weeks. $3,000, she'd said. Completely drenched, completely ruined. But that wasn't all. The impact had burst the bag open. The contents had spilled out across the floor. Her phone, her wallet, credit cards, lipstick, keys, and several photographs. Daniel bent down slowly. His movements were careful, like he was afraid of what he might find. He picked up one of the photos. His hands started to shake. It was Rebecca. With another man. A tall man with dark hair. They were kissing. Intimate. The photo was dated from last month. There were others. Many others. Different locations. Different dates. Some going back over a year. And receipts. Hotel receipts from downtown Portland. Restaurant receipts from places Daniel and Rebecca had never been together. All with another name signed at the bottom. Marcus Whitfield. There were text messages. 2. Her phone screen was still lit up, somehow undamaged. The messages scrolled across the screen. Loving messages. Secret messages. Plans to leave Daniel once the divorce settlement was secured. Daniel looked at me. Then at Rebecca, who had come running at the sound of the crash and now stood frozen in the doorway, her face drained of all color. Daniel, she started, her voice small for the first time since I'd known her. But he held up his hand. His face had changed. The gentleness was gone. In its place was something I'd seen only once before, when someone had hurt a child on his little league team years ago. The kindness was gone, replaced by steel. Get out, he said quietly. Too quietly. Daniel, let me explain. It's not what it looks like. Get out of my mother's house. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time in 7 years, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. You did this, she whispered. You pushed the pot. I met her gaze steadily. I was standing right here. I said softly, at the stove. How could I have reached that shelf? She opened her mouth, closed it. She had no answer. She left that night. Took only what she could carry into suitcases. Everything else she'd have to come back for with a police escort, Daniel said. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Daniel learned that Rebecca had been having an affair with Marcus Whitfield for over 2 years. They'd met at a marketing conference. They'd been planning to leave together once she secured enough of Daniel's money and assets through the marriage. She'd already consulted with 3 divorce attorneys. But that's not the end of the story. What I haven't told you is what really happened in those 5 minutes after Rebecca hit me with the ladle. I stood at that stove, trembling, humiliated, my head throbbing, and I prayed, not for revenge exactly, but for truth, for justice, for my son to finally see what I'd been seeing for years. The coldness, the cruelty, the way she looked at him like he was a paycheck instead of a person. And then I did something. I reached up to the shelf above the stove where that heavy cast iron pot sat. I knew it was unstable. The bracket had been loose for weeks. I'd been meaning to ask Daniel to fix it, but somehow I'd never gotten around to it. I gave it the smallest push, just enough. I tittered, waited, and then fell exactly where I knew Rebecca always placed her precious handbag when she came into the kitchen to criticize my cooking. Sometimes life gives you a moment, a single moment where you can choose to speak or stay silent, to act or do nothing. I chose to act. Daniel is happier now. He's started dating again, a kind woman named Sarah, who teaches elementary school and loves children. She laughs easily and helps me in the kitchen. She treats me with respect. She calls me Margaret, but with warmth, not coldness. Daniel apologized to me 3 months after Rebecca left. He cried. My strong, quiet son cried in my kitchen and said he'd been afraid. Afraid of confrontation. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of failing at marriage the way he thought he'd failed at other things. He'd heard Rebecca that night, but couldn't face it. He knows he should have protected me. I forgave him immediately. That's what mothers do. That's what love does. But I also taught him something that day. Even if he doesn't know the whole truth, sometimes kindness looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like stirring soup and biting your tongue for 7 years. And sometimes it looks like a falling pot that reveals everything hidden in the dark. I'm 72 now. My head healed. The lump went away after a week, but the lesson remained. Stand up for yourself, even quietly. Trust that truth has a way of falling into place, sometimes with a little help. And never, ever underestimate a woman who spent a lifetime learning patience, because patience isn't weakness. It's just revenge taking its time.